Hey Ines, how are you?
Hello, Thor. I'm fine, thank you. The sun's out. Another day closer to March. Lockdown easing. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen so many posts on Instagram about people who are like joyous about that, it might all come to an end on the 21st of June, you
it
know.
could all come to an end. That's right,
Yeah,
but
but we'll have to wait and see. But
yeah,
it's looking good, isn't it?
it is. Eventually, it does have to come to an end. I mean, that's just one of the things. The
Yeah.
virus has to. It'll go its own little way, and then it'll get fed up with feeding off of us or something, and it'll
Yeah.
just go away.
Yeah.
I think we've certainly, I think everybody's learned a lesson. The
Yeah.
diversity of people I've spoken to, either they've changed their attitude about, say, being at home, they're looking forward to going out, but they now like their own company a bit more.
Mm.
They come to terms within, and I think also the value of what is and isn't important. You know, you don't always have to have the newest car. You don't always have to have designer this or that. It's just friendship, family,
That kind of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
free,
I totally agree. I think there's
yeah.
been a huge change in, I suppose it's a change in values and priorities, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, not at all.
You know, when I think of the just Bitcoins, $50,000 for one little Bitcoin. I know you can buy a bit of a Bitcoin, but money, there's some insane money that's just going, where is it going?
Yeah.
And then you go to India. I was watching the CNN, and they're vaccinating in parts of the slum areas. And the man they were interviewing, he was supposed to sign a consent form. He says, I can't read or write.
Mm.
So they filled it in for the man. And he didn't know, and then he got $10 for the vaccination. This seems this enormous contrast between, somebody having a shirt on their back and the others having billions of pounds or dollars worth of Bitcoins.
Yeah.
I'm not saying socialism is great or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. There just seems to be an awful lot of huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've
Uh,
been to India, so I've seen it
yeah,
firsthand.
I know. It's just, I don't know. But yes, yes, yes. Anyway, I'm really looking towards our podcast today, and it is on love. But the love we can have is in so many different areas. And everyone is looking for something. And usually we don't actually quite know what we're looking for, but we know we're looking for something, and that can be a form of either ambition in your job, collectability. Maybe you think that the right partnership is the one what you're looking for, all kinds of things. But what we are looking for, we cannot hold in our hand. And of course, from the spiritual point of view, spirit call it love. But the love that I'm actually referring to in this instance is the ability to become totally aware of another person's needs, their thoughts, what they need. And with that understanding, but it has to be a genuine understanding, not just lip service. But when we truly understand and try to put ourselves into another person's shoes, the environment, the difficulties that they're having, that actually lights the candle of understanding. And that lighting that candle of understanding within ourselves is called enlightenment. That's where enlightenment comes from. Nothing else. It is so simple. And that enlightenment brings a huge sense of calm and a peace within ourselves. We can't describe it, but it's a love. Of course, there are many other forms of love as well. But when we can actually feel and become aware of what others are feeling, that is then that love we're talking about. When we speak about our body, our physical body, a lot of a lot of illnesses are caused by ourselves. I'm talking on a huge basis. The way we live, the way we treat our body, perhaps the type of things we eat, what we imbibe. It can be all kinds of chemicals and so on. But very often it is to the detriment and well-being of our physical body. Now, the same thing would apply to the peace and the calmness of our own mind. It's usually our mind is calm, no problem. But what comes around us, what we read about, how life affects us, and so on, disturbs that calmness. But literally by being courteous, which is not old-fashioned, understanding others as well, reinstates that calmness within our mind. And that is then a spiritual love. When we acknowledge, say, love thy neighbor. I'm never talking about a doormat or turn a blind eye to aggression or hate or anything like that, but just understanding it for no other reason brings forward that sort of a commitment in ourselves. It's a commitment that we should follow through at all cost. And the commitment is that we should live to the best of our ability and to take pride in our life, whatever it may be. Whatever does happen in life, of course, it's not as simple as, oh, it's meant to happen, so turn a blind eye, just don't do anything about it. That's not at all, what I'm talking about. So when we come back to life again, what is the purpose of life? I mean, everybody, you can go online, everybody says it's a learning purpose. Obviously, experience purpose. Yeah, we're the vehicle. But we also have another really, really important purpose, and that's procreation. And that procreation has to be, because if there weren't enough life forms, I'm only talking of planet Earth at the moment, if there are not enough life forms, our spirit, is not able to learn and to progress because there's no one around. So procreation is very, very important. On Earth, as I was just saying, we reproduce a likeness. It's a duplication process. On other planets, actually, the interesting thing is, depending on, life is able to reproduce itself in different ways, depending on the atmosphere, whatever's happening to the planet, but not just simply a replica as we have it on Earth. Now, the spirit, our spirit around us, attaches to the human being the split second of conception. So the moment life has been created at conception, our spirit is around us. Now, our spirit cannot attach itself to a plastic bottle. It can't hug a plastic bottle. There has to be the two coming together, the man and the woman coming together to make that happen. And that split second is when the spirit comes around us. So we come back again to say a phantom pregnancy. We're going back to experiences. We're also going to love, all inclusive. A phantom pregnancy is what happens, of course. The spirit is there, yoo-hoo, I'm ready, but there's no conception has taken place. Now that occurs, I'm not talking about, say, malfunctions of the body, something's going wrong, but from the spiritual point of view, it could just be that the spirit did not wish for the conclusion of itself to be aligned to that body at this time, because it is a learning process, not only for the spirit, but for the vehicle, which would be, say, the mother and father who are trying for a child. And then the phantom pregnancy is a disappointment. It's an emotion. So that emotion is part of the learning process, of course, on our planet as well, which would also include all irregularities, I say that guardedly, that we have as human beings. We can be born without limbs. We can be born about this and that, without something that we consider is completeness. Everything that happens is there for a purpose. Everything for the purpose of learning for that particular spirit and that experience that it needs to move through, but also for the parents to move through as well. So when we talk about, let us say, the different aspects of love, the spiritual love is not only us understanding and being able to identify the needs and the needs of, say, another human being, but the love also of ourselves. That's a spiritual love, because we are, all of the emotional feelings are all within us, each of us. What emotions we have to go through at any given time is then that particular lifetime. But we have the ability to go through everything. Let's say we have the emotion of hate, which is the opposite, of course, of love. Because a love, a really deep love, can turn into a hate by whatever happens in that life, in that particular life, whatever triggers the mind from love to hate. So you have evil, you have good and evil, so many different alternatives to the same theme, but love and hate are very, very similar. But when the love turns to, say, hate, it is our physical mind that makes that adjustment for the learning process of what we're going through. It's not the spirit around us. The spirit would learn on how is that person going to deal with the emotion that has all of a sudden become from love to something of hate, because we have all of the capabilities of seeing, feeling, experiencing, all the capabilities and situations on earth. We have that ability. So when we talk about, let's say, spirit that is around us, we are the host. So when we die, when we pass into spirit, as the saying goes, what happens? The spirit no longer has a host, us. We return to the earth, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. There's no particular vehicle, such as, let's say, a human being or an elephant, anything like that. So at that point, spirit are not anything in particular. They're not big, little, no particular color or anything like that, because they are then waiting, perhaps, in order for a reincarnation process to take shape again, and then they will resume their shape. So our spirit is whatever. The spirit, actually, the size is, I cannot prove this, is about the size of a teeny weeny on top of a tiny little needle. It's that size. So let us say it is then comes into a 6-foot man. So all of a sudden, the spirit moves around and is around the conception, at the point of conception, then it grows, which is an enormous miracle. However, that same little teeny weeny seed can become an elephant. So the size in the physical terms has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. So when we talk of love again, on a physical level, if you get a couple together, I'm being very basic, you get a couple together, love each other, so on, the inevitability is usually that it would result in a child. But sometimes a hugely loving couple try everything, and then there's no child. And of course, what happens is that, yes, there can be a malfunction, of course, but there can also be simply that the spirit is learning, and once the experience of going through the anguish of trying so hard to have a child, and it is not happening, that the mind and the experience of the hosts that the spirit is around, of what it feels like, how are they going to deal with it? There's also the situation of individuals not wanting a child. Nothing wrong. These are all choices. These are all experiences that are very physical. They need to progress, and they help the spirit to progress. Or if we talk on an emotional level, on earth, we have a certain amount of free will. There are other areas, galaxies, that I understand they have total free will. To me, it sounds a mess, because we're making a pretty good mess of it, from my point of view, with a little bit of free will. So that free will, we take, in this instance, let's say someone deciding for themselves whether or not they want children. So that is then a free choice within their karmic pattern. They're exercising the free will of the power of karma. So, which is no different than I don't want, I prefer this, than all the other emotions, obviously, that we go through. But when we come to Of course, the love situation, when there is procreation, say between loving parents, the nurturing of that child or children is possibly a lot different than if it was achieved through violence. So the nurturing of those children would possibly be very, very different again. But love, so much can be overcome by love. If we take that small word, which initially I mentioned is to help and to be aware of other people's feelings, that small word can prevent many of the wars, many of the disagreements, if there was love for man. I'm using mankind as a generalization for humanity, of mankind, just a little bit of understanding in all cases. So when we go back to say, love thy neighbor, which means love thy neighbor, if we are able to a degree, we also have a certain amount of love for ourselves. And that love, that certain amount of love has to be there. Because if we didn't love ourselves, it doesn't matter. It's different. It's an intellectual thing. It's inside of yourself. It's called preservation. It's a survival instinct. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't want to live, and our life would come to an end. That's slightly another story. But without loving or respecting others, we have to also respect ourselves. So actually, the totality of love, as I'm describing it, cannot be overemphasized, because we can just turn on any news channel and see the effects of the emotion of hate and what it creates and all the problems it creates and all the difficulties it creates around the world at this time, just that small word of love. Now, with that love, I'm going back again to the spiritual love, to the identification of being aware of others' needs, and also to help other individuals. So usually, you can go through all of the religions, you can go through many individuals as well. Everyone's always seeking the understanding of life. Understanding of life, why life, okay, so it's experience, it's learning, what happens after life, what happens to our spirit? Just because I said it doesn't have a form, what happens? Do we see mother and father again? Do we see our love? Do we see our children? Where does the spirit go? But all of those things go through mankind's mind. And as I said, it has nothing to do with your philosophy or religion. It's just there. But love itself, that means the understanding that we need, also that compassion, the help and understanding of other people, the very essence of love, can bring forward all of those answers. And the reason it can bring forward those answers is because the concept of understanding reinstates the calmness in our mind. Once the calmness of our mind is reinstated again, guess what? We can communicate outside of the box, outside of the hate box, outside of the vengeance box. And that is what we're all looking for, to get some inkling on a personal level of understanding, because the mind is calm, because love, the understanding, the help, the nurturing of other people, that it's calming of the mind. Now, if we loved our neighbor, everybody loved their neighbor, loved the other countries, no problem, fabulous, idyllic world. No, it's not. It will not happen, will never happen, for the simple reason it would stagnate. There's no interaction. Spirit would not progress, and that can't happen. So to bring forward another alternative, of course, of love is also to bring forward the greater understanding towards the care and the nurturing of animals as well. When I talk about animals, I'm not only speaking about the horses, the dogs, the pussycats, the hamsters, the goldfish, so on. I'm talking on a very global level of understanding and care towards animals. That's also love. And these sort of feelings are often pushed to the background. I know a lot is being done, the rainforest and habitats and so on and so forth. A lot is being done through that understanding and the appreciation. But of course, there are different kinds of love. And the love, this is also a different kind of love, man's love for animals, but also animals' love for man, which is unstinted. There's no reserve in an animal's love for his master. Doesn't matter what they do, who it is, what happens to them. The animal will remain and is the friend and will always give that unstinting love. Now, there's been a lot of research into this as well. This type of love is that if we would, let's say, be more aware, but totally aware, and accept the love of animals. The love of animals isn't always, they can hug and a kiss. It's on a very different, not different level of better or worse. It's just differently expressed. The vibrations that come from an animal, the feelings of camaraderie, of love, of strength, is different. But once we are able to understand and accept the totality of the love that can come from the animals and how they are able to help mankind in that tedium, let's say getting through the tedium, that means the difficulties, the arguments, the insecurities, the anxieties, the stresses, that's tedium. Animals are able to help us get through the tedium, also help us through through illnesses to find the strength within ourselves. Very often we can't find love from mankind. I mean, people just in general. But we can certainly find love of animals. We can indulge in the love from animals. The interesting thing is, therefore, the population of animals, I'm talking worldwide, has a very great bearing on that of man, because we do not really have fully realized what is between everyone. Every single animal, even down to the smallest little animal, all creatures, we all have an infinity. That means the little worm. It means the whales. It means the eagles, whatever, the little gophers, the spiders, the ants, everything. We're all in this together. Everything and every one of us we are all linked in one way or another. It is a totalness. And that is also a love, which begins with a harmony of understanding, trying to put ourselves, helping to put our thoughts into other people's circumstances. So love is hugely important to the whole of our life. But without, again, as I said, without loving ourselves, we would not wish to go on. We would not wish to procreate, because then we see, well, what's the point of it all? Doesn't make any difference. However, also the caring of the sick is a form of love. And illness is not always illness. It can be in the mind. It can be a physical situation, all manner of situations. It can be even someone not loving themselves, going through a very difficult time. Caring, understanding, giving a bit of time is also a form of love, because through that type of love, we also learn a feeling of sympathy and also a feeling of compassion. So when we think of a law, there's a law, and if we think of karma, it's usually referred to as the law of karma, which has repercussions and which has retributions. But these retributions and repercussions are not for sin. They're simply for learning. And that we also sometimes forget. So if we make a commitment, it is our responsibility to follow it through. It is also our responsibility to make a commitment, as I said before, to live our life to the best of our ability, to take pride in our life, in whichever way it happens to be, because that is our life. That has been chosen for us. Some say maybe we've chosen it as well, but it's our responsibility. It's good. It's positive. We learn. We progress. It is all good. Okay.
So
But it,
you've been talking about love there. And like I suppose we have like physical love, right? Physical like being in a relationship with another person, physical like love for our children, love for animals. Um, and maybe what I'm going to say next is perhaps controversial, but I think it's good to like put it out there. So then we mentioned we can also like like we can put on the TV and see atrocities happening all over the world, right? But that is a part of our lesson. So in so many ways, is that also then a part of love, because that is our learning.
well, I think with the compassion, and say we see atrocities, we also see a lot of people try to do something about it.
Yeah.
Let's say there's a famine in Africa, and on television you can contribute whatever amount of money you wish to contribute, and so out go the ships. The people are suffering, no doubt about that. Have we ever heard? I have once saw a report how many of these food ships and food, not only trucks, but also trains went out to these areas and they didn't reach their destination. Something happened. I'm not even talking about, pillaging or being wasted. The ship's gone down a bad sea. They had to divert it to a different port, red tape and so on. A lot of this food does not get there. Simply doesn't mean we should stop trying, because it was not meant to. So these atrocities, how are we going to react? There will be some people who are chopping down the rainforest at a rate of knots. Actually, I don't even know how much is going. I know how much is going out every single day. And then the rest, there's another group of people who are trying to stop this from happening in order to create some form of a balance. Not only the habitat of the animals, it's the habitat of the air that we're breathing. So there are two factions. One, I need to clear land because I want to grow crops. And the other areas, well, if you do that, guess what? None of us are going to breathe. So it's always a balance.
Yeah. No, exactly. You also, I suppose a really interesting one is also, so you mentioned free will there briefly, right?
Yes.
It's an old age question, isn't it? Like, where does free will begin and end, and vice versa? We don't know, do we? We just know that we have some. We just don't know how much.
Exactly. I think when we did that regression seminar last weekend, I touched a little bit on the free will. What we have, when I mentioned the calmness that comes through, let us say, some form of awareness of others, when we're not only aware of I, me, my, that brings a peace in our mind, a peace. And that through that peace, we can then harness, that is what spiritual love is, a peace through acknowledging other individuals, other humanity, other people in humanity. That peace then allows other forms of communication, other forms of answers to come through. It's that peace of mind, but it's that same peace that is also the light bulb, not only of inner wisdom, but also the light bulb of inventions. That is what brings forward, God, what am I going to do? And you've managed to calm your mind. That light bulb is able to ignite within each of us. There's never a right or wrong way to think. It has to be individual. How each of us are born with our mentality, with our experiences, is perfectly right. What is possible, we're then able, through our own free will, give the time to ourselves to, let's say, to meditate, to relax, call it what you want to, in order to reinstate that calm mind. And that's where then, as I said in the regression, we find maybe new talents. You always thought you liked that, but my God, you can actually do it. And because now with this lockdown, things are desperate. New jobs, new ways of doing things have to be found.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the calmness.
Yeah. Do you think that there's some people who have more free will whilst others have less?
No, none at all. We all have the same bag of tricks. If say one person is more able to move into meditative state, it is because they're exercising their mind over matter. So let's say the person that doesn't, their hand isn't tied, but that is their lesson. Can they motivate themselves to do the same thing as somebody else? Our mind is so powerful. It is more powerful than any computer on the planet. And that's saying an awful lot. Our projection of communication, say that with the ESP we spoke about once, is faster than anything. We can reach another individual within not even a split second of time. It's there. Our mind is that powerful. But we always say, I can't do that. Oh, isn't he lucky or she lucky? Overcome that. The limitations we create ourselves.
Yeah.
And also when other people meditate, do anything else, good for them. But try not to measure yourself by anyone. Just be yourself. But no, love it. It's a hard one, especially if someone steps on your toes. They're trying to get your job, or they're trying to ruin your reputation. It's a hard one.
I suppose that can be karmic though, right? If someone is trying to ruin your reputation, that can be a karmic.
It can be, yes, but it's the interaction which is karmic.
Yeah.
No one can take anything away from us. Nothing. No one has that power. But if you're dealing with states of emotions like that, trying to take your reputation, trying to take your job, be diligent, do your work, be punctual, and put on a nice face. You will win. It will blow over. It will blow over. No one can take anything away from you. No one. And what we've gone through, what the world has gone through, let's just hope what is now coming out of it, maybe it'll be good. Some of it will be very, very good.
Yeah.
And also with taking away, I think one example that I once gave, you might have already heard it, about life. We cannot kill anything that is not meant. Is this, of course, how it happens is not very nice. But if we're speaking on a spiritual level, it is still the interaction, the cause and effect that then is our physical karma.
Yeah.
Not nice, but whatever. In the 1930s, that was the Depression, wasn't it? And anyway, people were losing a lot of money. They were broke. They were bankrupt. And there was one story. A man jumped from the Empire State Building, had enough. And guess what? He fell, I think, about 7 floors or something in midair. And a gust of wind came and blew him through a window. Woo-hoo. Yeah. I can give you a couple of other stories that have been documented, not just out of my mind, where that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a bit like my friend who had a heart attack last weekend, who's 29, and did that at the specialist place where he was getting checked for his heart attack. You know, if that happened anywhere else,
he would have been gone.
He would have been gone.
Yes.
So yeah.
But I also, in the same thing, if we're talking about someone jumping out of a window or something, if there was one chap who was in the group, and he actually managed to take his own life. He was a slave. I'm not saying what color he was, but he was a slave at that time, very poorly treated, horribly treated. And he was in a pigsty, and anyway, this was through regression, and he hung himself. He wasn't very old, maybe 20s, and then he hung himself. He succeeded. He was born again. He still had to go through a life of, let us say, of not destitution, but of limitations. And what happens? So he was born again. He wasn't the cleverest of chaps, which meant that he was on the bottom of the, let's say, the pecking order of the food chain. And that, of course, was the limitations in this lifetime. And what happens? He got to about 20, something like that. And his life should not have finished. So you're marking time. He sort of feels if you're not doing anything, you're marking time. You're not getting extra time, you're just marking time. And then the karma starts again to see if he can manage, to bear up in his lifetime. And he always said, my gosh, I'm going to die young. I'm going to die young. Oh, yeah. You're just talking, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he lived into his 30s. I was still in touch with him. He went back to France, where his mother lived, and he did pass away in his 30s. So it was still not a very long life, but he finished his karma. He finished it this time. With the limitations, he was always in restaurants. He was the one that washed the dishes or swept the floor, that sort of thing. But that was because he was meant to. And underneath, he was an amazing, brilliant individual.
Yeah.
But this time for learning, he was that.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. So on that positive note, what positive message are we going to leave our listeners with this week?
Don't judge yourself, be yourself. You're as good as anyone. And commit yourself to your life, that you lead it as possible, as positively as you can.
Yeah.
Because with that positivity, maybe that's what you're supposed to learn, not to give up. And then the page of karma will change. And you, all of a sudden, wow, I didn't see that coming. Even just taking the time to listen to these types of podcasts, you're trying to do something. You're looking for answers.
Yeah.
First step.
Yeah. And you can find them through meditation, through calming the mind.
Calming the mind. That's right. Absolutely. It is the calming of the mind.
Yeah.
Being aware of others' needs.
All right. Well, thank you again, Ines, for a lovely Friday and podcasting. As always, it was great.
Thank you. Thank you. So good to see you. It was so good to be in touch with all of our listeners.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.